You guys can unmute if you want. How's everyone doing?
Hi.
I just went for a nice walk in the snow.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Very good. Did you talk to anybody, Kristen, from the meditation class yesterday?
I had just a brief email with Katie.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So she filled you in.
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You should listen to the recording.
Okay, I
think
will.
you'll be
I will.
pleasantly surprised at the end. Hi, everyone.
Thanks.
Yes.
So if you haven't gotten in touch with me yet about doing your attunement, let me know. And I'm waiting for 3 more people. We'll give it another minute and then we'll get started.
Oh, there's a dog.
Hi, Rollins. Rollins is here. He's like a little kid who doesn't want you to be like on the phone or something. Wait, just a couple more people. We're waiting to connect. All right, so we'll just go ahead and get started with a little meditation while we're waiting for the others to join us. So you want to come into a comfortable seated position. And just close your eyes and feel your feet on the floor or feel your seat on the ground. If you're used to meditating with your eyes open, you can certainly leave your eyes open. Otherwise, you want to close your eyes. Take a few breaths and just let yourself arrive in your body right now, right here in this moment, with nothing else to do, nowhere else to be, just right here. Relax your shoulders. Relax your face, your forehead, your jaw. Relax the belly. And see if you can connect with a sense of your breath reaching down all the way into the low belly, into the low back. And allow your low back to relax. And allow your belly to soften. And now take a deep breath in and lengthen up through the back and through the back of the neck and through the back of your head. And on your exhale, maintain that length and let the shoulders soften. Let the mind open and be wide and spacious. Feel as if you can breathe in and out through your chest. And visualize as you're breathing that there's a light growing inside your body, behind and then through your sternum. It's emanating through the heart center. It's a warm light. And allow yourself to feel that light traveling down your arms and through your hands. As you imagine that you're breathing through this heart center, allow yourself to imagine that you are breathing light from the space and the air around you through the heart center. Breathing it in through the chest, if you can visualize both the chest and upper back breathing in light. And as you exhale, it's expanding and traveling down your arms and into your hands. Now imagine that you could connect with the energy of the crown of your head. So bringing the awareness to the top of your head. And imagine that you're breathing in light through the top of the head. And that light is traveling down to the heart center and through the arms and to the hands. And now visualize that you are breathing this light throughout your entire body. That it's glowing from your skin, radiating from you. Maybe you'll feel a warm tingling traveling down like a waterfall through your legs and feet into the floor. And then bring your hands into prayer position in front of your heart with your thumbs touching your chest. And take your awareness to the points where the two middle fingers are touching. Low back and belly are still soft and relaxed. There's still length in the spine, and the chest is open and slightly lifted. And as you sit radiating light, keep your awareness in your hands. You can continue to focus on the tips of the middle fingers where they touch. Or you can bring the attention to the space between the palms. Shoulders are relaxed. Eyebrows are soft. Mouth and tongue are relaxed. The mind may wander. Just take your attention back to where the middle fingers are touching or to the space between your palms. Just for today, I will not be angry. Just for today, I will not worry. Just for today, I will be grateful. Just for today, I will work hard. And just for today, I will be kind to others. And that kindness extends to ourselves. Working hard means without attachment and with attention and mindfulness. So as you sit, I'd like you to allow your mind to become engaged by thinking about if you were to give yourself a session right now or someone else, what would it be that you would say as your prayer to the universe to start the session? What would be your intention? How would you word it? Are there any energies that you connect with? Or spiritual masters or deities, guiding forces, senses that you would like to invoke or ask for help with the session? Maybe you'd like to call on your own angels and guides to be present. Maybe you don't resonate with that. Maybe it's something else. Whatever it is, just sit with it for a moment so that you come to some sense of knowing, not necessarily of every single word of your prayer, but a sense, a general feeling of what it might be. And then take your awareness back to your hands. Feel if there's any sensation in your hands. And then gently start to rub the palms together. And cup the hands over your eyes. So you're not pressing on your eyes, you've got your hands cupped. And allow that warmth, that energy from your hands to permeate deep into your eyes. Let your forehead and your whole eye socket relax. This is a wonderful thing to do after you've been on the computer for a while. The eyes don't get to rest and cleanse themselves when you're staring at the computer because they're constantly focused. So this really helps them to relax. You may find that they start to water as a result, and that's just your eyes catching up on cleansing themselves. And then with the heel of your hand and kind of the mound of the fingers, press in a little bit and then stretch your face so as you move your hands toward your temples. And then give your temples a massage with your fingertips. And your jaw, move down, massage the jaw. And then start to massage the ears. And as you do, pull the ears, work around the earlobe and pull them out from your scalp and pull down on the lobes. And then take a breath in, and you can use your middle fingers. You want to rub briskly along either nostril. You're going to breathe in, and as you exhale, rub briskly and exhale quickly. And then massage up around the eyebrow and then under and out toward the temple, and then flick off the fingers from the temples. And then do this again. Take a deep breath in and a brisk breath out. And massage around the eyes and flick off any residue from the temples. And we'll do this one more time. Take a deep breath in. And then just open your eyes. And things may look a little clearer, a little brighter. You may feel a little more awake. And you're welcome to unmute yourselves now. And I'm interested in hearing how many people did the reading from last week, chapters 1 and 2. Okay, no judgment if you didn't get to it. If you didn't, you can still do it. And how many people did some sitting and some meditation during the week, even one time? Good. Good. And then I feel like I'm in like a kindergarten class. How many people did this? The other thing I want to ask is, did anyone do that other exercise that I recommended where you pick one place of the body and send yourself energy? Was anyone able to do that? Good. Good. So I'd like to hear some of your experiences from the previous week working with the energy, and also if you have any questions about anything up until this point, anything in the reading, whether it was in the assigned reading or anything else you found in the book that intrigued you or you have questions about. You can just go ahead and speak.
Well,
some people end up speaking over each other like I just did.
So I started, sorry if this is too much information, but I was driving in the car on Sunday and I started to have terrible, terrible menstrual cramps. So I started doing some of that visualization and sending energy to that portion of my body. And within a couple of minutes, they were gone.
That's awesome.
That is awesome, because I had horrible ones growing up.
And you know how long they can take to get rid. It can be days before they're gone.
Yes.
That's fantastic. You know, speaking of the car, I've had plenty of beaters in my day, and I used to do Reiki driving the car, like trying to get it to the next place sometimes. And I swear that helped. It helped keep the engine going until I got there. So that's, you know, you never know. It's worth a try. Any questions?
Well, I had couple observations.
Okay.
So when I was practicing the middle finger and the palms, pretty strong. It happened just now, but not as strong. The pulse of the heart. Mm-hmm. I felt that my palms were tingling and hot. But what happened, my feet got extremely hot during the practice. And I used to have issues with my feet being very hot. I mean, I was diagnosed with Raynaud's a long time ago, and some other thing that just meant hot feet, erythromyalgia or something like that. But it was really weird. I don't know. Do you think that was some sort of negative energy coming out, or?
Well, a couple of things. So I would continue to pay attention and notice if that happens. Reiki can come out your feet, your hands. It can come out like your body. You can like radiate it. It can come out specific energy centers like we just focused on with the heart. It can come out your eyes. You can direct it through your eyes. But the soles of the feet and the palms of the hands are very strong energy centers for sending and receiving life force. And I would pay attention to whether you notice that happens every time you do that meditation with your feet, and notice if it happens with your hands as well. Since you know that you have a diagnosed condition where that can happen,
Yeah.
a lot of times what will happen with Reiki is that it will go to areas that need it. So that's why, it'd be interesting to see if you can follow that and notice if it's only happening when you do the meditation, or if it's happening other times, if it's happening in the pattern you would expect it to, as it did in the past. It'll be something to watch as you go through, because you may find that if it happened, like, I don't know, after you went skiing or when you got out of the shower, whenever you ordinarily notice it happen more in the winter than in the summer, or vice versa, and you're doing Reiki and paying attention to it, you might find that it's actually like the Reiki energy is going there to heal it. So that can be the case.
Experienced the real hot feet in a long time. I used to have to stand in the snow, like when my kids were little, they were so hot and red, or sleep with a fan and a washcloth on them. They've been better, but I typically sleep with them out. But it was like, it brought me back to like, oh my goodness, but just now it didn't happen.
And do your hands get that hot too when you do that?
They were hot, but not quite as hot as my feet.
Okay.
They tingly and hot. They're not now, but I'm in the yurt and it's really cold.
Yeah.
I will pay attention to that. And
yeah,
then
pay attention.
And then I had one other observation. I wrote minimal feeling the taffy during the homework. I felt like I was like pushing for it. So I was bringing myself into it or something, right? I mean, I felt it, but I didn't feel like somebody said they couldn't even get their hands together.
Yeah. And it'll be different. It can be different almost every time you do it. Sometimes it'll feel like for some people, it might be that every time you'll feel like you can't get your hands together, but it might fluctuate. It might feel like you feel more drawn to doing the taffy and that's more prominent for you, or it may feel like you may feel different things, as you do it. It's just an exercise to get the awareness into your hands and practice being aware of the energy going to your hands and the different ways the energy can feel, because it'll feel different at different times. You'll actually feel cold or heat or static, or tingling sensations of varying degrees. And it can be in different parts of your hands. It can be your whole hand. When you're focusing on your hands, you're bringing your attention there, and where the attention goes, the energy flows, and the energy and the blood tend to pair up when they flow. So when you do focus on your hands, and when you do Reiki, yes, you'll be picking up warmth from the body, but you're also sending more circulation to that part of your body because you're focusing on it. So it'll be interesting to see
Yeah.
how that pans out. Any other questions from last week or anything that you experienced as you were practicing?
Bridget, I'm having trouble actually being able to get to the concentration part of like all of this without you actually like walking through and kind of bringing me back. Like I guess it's the actual meditation part of the whole thing. Like I'm having trouble with that, and should I be working on that first before I keep going with all this, or will this actually be?
No, I would say do whatever we do, you can practice, whether, it doesn't have to be step by step.
Okay.
If it's easier for you to click in when you're sending energy to yourself or with a different technique that we're doing, then use that technique. And you can always go back and practice with the recordings.
Okay. Oh, that's true. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I would do that. I would download them and then practice with it. And you can do it like some of the stuff we're going to do in this course, you can use as you go to sleep at night, even.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Lying down. Yeah, you're welcome. It's that, it is that concentration piece is tough. And especially with we already had a ton of stuff to do. And we were already really busy before this all started happening a year ago with the virus. And now it's like, there's so much more, even though we are venturing into the outside world less, we have more going on in the inside world because there's so much more to process as we adapt to what's happening. And not only that, but we are on the computer an awful lot. Like some people were already on the computer a lot, and now they're doing even more meetings. And then the people that weren't on the computer a lot are on the computer more. Like traditionally, we would be sitting in my office right now together doing this in person. And so it's a lot for our minds to process, our brains to process. And it's difficult to keep your concentration and your focus. And it's quite a paradox because although in one sense, we have more time, we actually, we're not getting kind of the internal juice to make the most of it. It's because it's a lot to deal with. So, that may not be true for everyone, but it's what I see mostly in the clinic. And it's a lot of what I've observed in myself as well. So be patient with the concentration piece. And as far as that goes, once we get into the symbol and the mantra, that gives you something more to concentrate on so that as your mind starts to go off into some wonderland, you can bring it back with that. Yeah. And right now you can just say Reiki, Reiki,
Okay.
Reiki,
Mm-hmm.
and bring it back and bring it back. And then do practice. I would download the classes and practice just even the beginning meditation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Did anyone have any experiences? Any other experiences they want to share with sending themselves some energy?
I forgot to send myself energy.
Okay. All right. So, yeah.
Well, I don't even know how it's been a week. It feels like no time has gone by and it feels like a month has gone by because I just I had one of those weeks. In a good way, but but I began doing massage. So I had some appointments last week and definitely was challenging physically, and I like definitely noticed, I mean, I always do, but that like my hands are always activated when I work on people as well. And so that's probably Reiki related.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but when I got to my weekend, I woke up and I felt Rose had been really, really, really tired after work the last day. And then I was like, it was like the pressure internally had built to this level, and I had to like cry. And I just felt like it was so intense, like on this level that I hadn't experienced before, because it didn't feel like it was necessarily me or like anything in particular. And I just
Mm-hmm.
had to have this like huge release.
Yeah.
And then I rested. I forced myself to just rest.
Yeah.
So
That's good. And once you get to the point in that, there is a point where you just need to rest and not do a thing, just rest like a slug. And then once you get to a point where you feel like you want to do something, that's when sending yourself energy is really good to do. And I'm not surprised that that happened at all, because you just took your boards. And that's a huge stressor.
yeah.
So there's the three pillars of Reiki. There's the Gasho meditation, which is the one with the prayer hands. And there is the Reiki Ho, which is the prayer itself. And then there's the treatment. And this is in your manual. But I just like to highlight that because those three things are very important. And I would say if there's a different form of meditation that resonates more with you, then you can do that. So thinking of it in terms of the importance of meditation as a part of your Reiki practice, the importance of prayer, or that like vulnerable, open, surrender in strength part of you. That's part of the Reiki practice. And then of course the treatment. So it's not just about doing a Reiki treatment, it's about cultivating ourselves and being open and being able to connect with, some people call it the higher self, some people call it the wisdom body, or the wisdom self, or the witness consciousness. And those are important things to cultivate as you're on this journey with Reiki, because you're going to come up against, if you're going to come up in yourself, you're going to have realizations and awarenesses and insights. And a lot of it is very, very beautiful, but sometimes in order to access that beauty and that sort of bliss aspect of the treatment and of the energy itself, there will be debris that needs to get shaken loose and stirred up, and you don't always know what it is. And like Hannah just mentioned, she had kind of a rough time over the weekend, and that probably would have happened anyway to some extent after coming through that process that she just came through. But that sort of thing can also happen when you're doing a lot of self-awareness and self-cultivation work, because we need to recognize where our own obstacles are and where we are closing ourselves off to the energy that we're channeling through us. So we may say that we're channeling energy through us when we do Reiki, but really we have energy flowing through us all the time. So, sometimes your feet getting hot or tingly is not because of a diagnosis. Sometimes it is because you're running a lot of energy through your body, and you'll feel that coming through you in various ways. And when that's happening, it's clearing out your subtle energy system. So we have the physical body, and then we have the subtle energy body. And a lot of times these things in the past have been depicted as like we have our physical body, and then we have our energy body, and then we have this and the that and the other. And depending on the system you're learning, you're going to hear them categorized and described in different ways. But they're really all talking about the same things. And it's actually that we have an emanation coming off of us, but we also have, and I don't even think there's a word for it, an emanation going into us. So from the yogic perspective, we're like nesting dolls, those Russian nesting dolls. And so we have the physical body and a part infused into the physical body, a part of the physical body innervating the physical form and interacting with it is the energy body aspect of ourselves. And so that's like on our surface, and it's coming in through us, and it's going out in various ways through the meridians and through the chakras, and we'll talk more about these things. And then we have a mental and emotional body, and that's very strongly connected to the energy body or the pranic body or your chi or your ki. And then we have our wisdom body, which is an aspect of us that it's like our inner parent or our inner guide. And that's the part that recognizes the truth of a situation, like kind of from a bird's eye view, without trying to change anything, more like the observer consciousness, not detached, because it's still in the body. So you can still feel the emotions and the thoughts that are tied to the situation, but you also have this presence or this awareness of it so that it gives you perspective. And then there's the final layer of our like subtle anatomy, which is called the bliss body or the transcendent body or the soul body. And that's the one that allows us to feel a connection with all that is. If you get that sense of equanimity and peace and light and love when you're doing Reiki, it's like you're connecting with that on some level and experiencing at least a shred of that on some level. And so when you do Reiki, a lot of times you want to feel better emotionally, so you'll do Reiki. Or like Kate had the cramps, you'll have a pain somewhere and you'll send the Reiki energy to that place. And those are perfectly viable reasons to use it and ways to use it. But when you are meditating a lot and when you're sending energy to yourself a lot, and even when you're working on others a lot, it brings you into a place of presence where you're connecting with your wisdom self. And when you do that, it kind of frees up your anatomy. It frees up your musculature, your connective tissue, and it frees up some of the holding patterns in your body. And when that happens, whatever crystallized toxin of emotion that gets stuck in the tissue, that will start to clear out. And as that clears out, you're going to feel it. And so, like what happened with Hannah, sometimes you might have like a really, rough couple of days with it. Sometimes you'll get a passing, like you'll get really irritated easily for like pretty much no awareness, no rational reason. Sometimes you'll feel sad. Sometimes you'll feel scared or anxious and you won't really know why. And sometimes that can be because this gunk is actually getting cleared out of the tissue, the holding pattern that allows for that, whatever thing that is, to remain, starts to unravel. And this is why traditionally there's been some kind of a physical form that's practiced actually before you even get into any energy work. So either it's qigong, or it's tai chi, or it's yoga. There are various breathing practices and yoga practices in many different traditions. They're just not called yoga or tai chi or whatever. So usually those things are practiced because they help to prepare you for this all happening. And they also help to detoxify your body better. So it's really important, for example, to make sure that you're breathing well when you're doing any kind of self-cultivation practices, because 70% of the toxins in the body leave through the breath. And so if you have a holding pattern where your shoulders are tight and your chest is closed off and you're a little hunched over and you're at the computer a lot, for example, when that starts to release and open up, then any of the toxins that are stuck in between the layers of connective tissue start to get circulated. And in order to be removed, they don't just like poof vanish. They have to go through your bloodstream. 9 times out of 10, they go through your bloodstream and they're either converted into a gas and exhaled, or they're sent through the liver and the kidneys for detoxification, and then to the gut or to the bladder for elimination. And so having a good breath awareness practice can be helpful as you're doing your Reiki practice, because you're going to encounter things not just when you're doing your meditation or in off moments when they randomly come up, which they do. If you're doing a lot of self-cultivation, you could be in the middle of the grocery store or having a conversation with someone on the street, and all of a sudden a memory will hit you and the emotion associated with it. So it's kind of like it comes up whenever it wants to. It'll usually come up during your practice, like your meditation practice, for example, but it doesn't always. And so having that connection to being able to know that, oh, I need to take a few deep breaths here, because that's going to help loosen things up. It's going to help with detoxification. And if you have not been doing any exercise or any yoga or anything like that, I recommend that you do start to do something even at home on your own as a part of learning Reiki, because it's going to help you for all the reasons I just mentioned. It's going to help with detoxification. It's going to help with breath awareness. It's going to help you to feel stronger. Even doing a Reiki session on yourself, your arms will get tired. And then if you're thinking you want to go ahead and go through Reiki 2 and start working on other people, you're going to find that it's as difficult as sitting in a meditation posture for 45 minutes or an hour, because you're holding positions and you're very still for that entire time. Now you move every so often, but if you're working on another person, you don't want to just like stop and like leave the room and shake off or go do downward dog or something to stretch back out, right? It's a body mechanic thing, and a strength thing. You want to be able to maintain your posture without tensing up to hold it. You want to be open so that you're a good channel for the energy to flow through you. So I encourage you to keep that in mind as you go through these coming weeks. And if you do start to do a practice, if you haven't been practicing, you will feel a difference in yourself, even when you sit for meditation. And then when you're doing sessions, not just on yourself, but you'll notice it more on others. So meditation is the first pillar of Reiki, because it's kind of building on the fact that you've already got physical health and that your physique is in good shape to hold the poses that you need to hold. And then I'm teaching a class. I can't talk or teach the class. So it gives you the meditation piece, which is the first pillar of Reiki, is coming from the perspective that you've already done, your physical training, and now you're into the meditation part and the energy work part. And so just keep that in mind. And then the Reiki Ho, the prayer. So we did that in the beginning. How did you guys feel? Did you feel like you could connect with a sense of sort of like opening, and tell me what your experiences were with that? If you were able to connect with a prayer that you feel comfortable doing at the beginning of your sessions. So I mentioned last time that when I begin a session, I say something to the effect of, I simplified it last time, but this time I'll tell you more what I say in total. So I sit for a moment. I've already done my yoga and my meditation that day, and I ask that my angels and guides be present, and that the angels and guides of the person that I'm working with are present, and that we both maintain our beautiful boundaries during the session, and that we connect during the session for the purpose of healing for the greater good of both parties, and that neither of us takes on any of the other's personal energetics, and that and then I turn it around to myself and I ask the universe, God, whatever you want to call, whoever you resonate with, I ask that I be divinely guided, and that I am present enough to not only hear that guidance, but act upon it. And if there are any messages that come through that are intended for me to share with the person, that I'm able to hear them and communicate them clearly. And that I ask that the healing is a blessing for us both. And that's pretty much the extent of the prayer that I do at the beginning. Now I have propensities to certain energies that I'll call on a given day. Certain people that I'm working with, I will connect with their energy, and I will feel like I need to use the obstacle clearing energy force of Ganesha, for example. So I will connect with and bring through that energy intentionally. I'm using my intention. And when I work on myself, it might be different every time, the energy that I'm calling on, or sometimes I might call on everybody. I've been known to be in situations I call on like my friends that are a lot. So so it can vary, but that's what I do in a nutshell. And then at the end of the session, I don't just kind of walk away, whether it's me working on myself or me doing a session with someone else. What I do is a very similar thing to close it. So Reiki Ho is the prayer that you do at the beginning, but you also do it at the closing of the session. Even if it's you say namaste or thank you for the experience or whatever it is, it's nice to acknowledge that there's a gratitude present for whatever just transpired. So that being said,
Ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the 3 pillars, the first one is the meditation that everybody says. How do you say that? The Gasha meditation?
Gasho.
And then the second one is the Reiki Ho. Is that how you, okay. And then treatment. And then
Yeah. Think meditation, prayer, treatment. And the back end of the treatment is the closing prayer. So do you guys all have a sense of what, of something that you might say? You don't have to tell me what it is. I just want to know if you have that sense of how you're going to open a session, whether it's for yourself or for
I
someone.
think unconsciously, I open up a session each time by saying, oh, I'm so glad I'm sitting here and meditating. I'm just grateful that I'm there and did it, remembered to do it, and found the time and fit it in. And I'm just grateful that I'm there. And then I just go and unwind each part of my body through my meditation and breathing.
Mhm. But
and
this prayer would be before you do a Reiki treatment.
before you even get there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And it might be, well, after meditation, like
Okay.
as it's like the
More structure.
it's the starting point of the treatment.
Okay.
And it might be something that, if it's something that helps you to center and open up in a different way for the healing process, it might be something that you'd even use when you do a massage. It's
Mhm.
not something you have to say out loud.
Right.
It's more intention setting and opening at the very beginning.
Mhm.
So the last time we had the class, you had said something like, I asked that we be held in the light or something like that.
Mhm.
So that would be
Yes.
a beginning of the prayer.
Yep. Yep. You could use that.
Okay.
If you're Christian, you might say a prayer to Jesus or to Mary. If you're, it doesn't matter, whatever resonates with you.
And do you say these out loud to the?
No, you don't. You just say it to yourself. Yep. Yeah, I think people would run for the hills if they heard some of that stuff I say.
That's what I was thinking. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. No. It's more, it's for you to, like, when you're in a state of prayer, it's like you're in a state of, it puts you into a more receptive as well as a more open, vulnerable space. And when we have that opening or that vulnerability or that willingness to accept, that is another kind of like subtle shift that happens in the mind and in the body. It has a certain effect over us. And it helps us to kind of click into that space where we're acknowledging to ourselves that it's not our ego that's doing the treatment. That's part of it. So it's not like it has to be some religious thing. It's just that it's recognized as one of the parts of a Reiki session, and there's a reason for it. And as you do it and experience it, you'll feel for yourself why it's there. Kristen.
I've been doing a lot of prayer lately, which is something pretty new for me. I mean, it's become a regular practice, and that part of it is new. I've always kind of had this practice, but now I'm really doing it regularly, and I do feel like it leads to a certain kind of receptivity that I think is new for me. At least that's been my experience, that I just feel more receptive and open to energy, but to the possibilities of just what is in existence.
Yeah.
So,
And it's just slightly different than meditation.
yes.
That's also like, you're also open, you're also aware, you're also receptive, but it's different.
Yeah. Very.
And so when you're doing Reiki, you're actually bringing energy through you
Mhm.
and through you to yourself or through you to someone else. And it's more that feeling of the openness from when you do the prayer, because it kind of steps you out of the credit. It steps you out of the picture a little bit, so that you're more like the vessel that the Reiki flows through than anything. And then it's just a bonus that you have a mind and a heart so that you can relate to the person, and so that you can also perceive where it's best for that vessel to be most concentrated on the body, whether it's your body or somebody else's, meaning your hands, where they are should be, where they are best used on the body to affect healing. Hannah.
I just had a thought that's now I'm gonna ask about it as a question. So I was looking into a year ago, I was looking into therapeutic hypnotism and how it alters the brain waves, like you drop into different brain waves. Do you think that prayer or like that intention setting in a similar way to meditation, or even like in the way that hypnotism can, it alters your brain waves so that you're channeling on a different frequency than you would be if you just like went off the street and began?
It could very well be. I mean, I don't think that there's anything that we do or think or feel that doesn't alter the body somehow, whether it's the brain waves or the metabolism or the nervous system or whatever it is. So yeah, that may very well be. And there are like little kids that do Reiki, you know, like I'll give you an example. My little brother with Down syndrome, when he was like, I think he was probably around 5 years old, I gave him an attunement, and my other brother fell down and hurt himself, and Trevor ran right over and put his hands on him. Now, he'd never actually seen me do it that I can recall, but he had the attunement and he was able to know what to do with it. Like instantly. I was really surprised. It was really cool. And so so there are instances, of course, where you're not going to sit back and do that prayer per se, but it's a tool to, whether it clicks in that brainwave or whatever it is that it's doing, it's there for a purpose. And so it's part of the Reiki process. And you might not always use it, but it's helpful. I find that it's very helpful. And are there any more questions about that, about the 3 pillars? Any questions about the history of Reiki? That's all in the reading. So a lot of times in Reiki classes, the history gets a lot of attention, and I don't give it a lot of attention because it's in the manual. And I find that people don't remember it anyway. So I've filtered it out over the years to a large extent. But in the manual, there's on the like the 3rd page in, it's Roman numeral 5. There's this chart. It's got William Lee Rand's happy little face on there. I think this is the same picture he's been using for like 20 years. And so At the top of this chart is Dr. Mikhail Usui. So Dr. Usui is the one who is credited with the Reiki system. He's a Japanese man that lived in the late 1900s, or the late 1800s and early 1900s. And he was one person doing Reiki in Japan. There were several different schools of Reiki at the time. And in the history in this book, it talks about how he received the kind of initiation to be able to do Reiki. So he didn't go, the story goes, through a traditional teaching pathway. He was sort of initiated through his own meditation practice. And so in this book, it talks about how he went on a Zen meditation retreat with the passion for becoming enlightened so strong in him that he was vowed not to come down from the mountain until he became enlightened or he died. And so during his time, he was fasting and meditating. And it says on the 21st day of him being there in this mountain, he received this strong, sort of like in the yoga tradition, Shaktipat, which is like a bolt of lightning that travels through your body and it can knock you out. So that's what the story in this book tells of his initiation with Reiki, and that when he woke up, he was able to, he had this tremendous vitality flowing through him after fasting for 21 days and awareness and this ability to heal. And so he developed the attunement process and ended up training other people. But the story that I was taught was that when he was in this meditation retreat, he was doing a meditation at the time that he got the initiation into Reiki. And what happened was that these bubbles of light manifested outside of his body and struck him in the third eye. And when that happened, that he was sort of, those were his attunements, and he got downloaded the Reiki symbols. So without ever seeing the symbols, that's how the first time that he saw them. Now he'd seen the kanji, obviously the word Reiki is Japanese kanji and some of the symbols are. So he knew those symbols, but they were empowered symbols that came in this flash that sort of triggered this ability to heal in him. And this talks about how he just developed the symbols later. I've been taking Reiki since the early to mid 90s. I can't remember when I started, but I got my Reiki master training in 1996. And at that time, that's a story that was still told. There have been a lot of changes that have happened with the history of Reiki. So that's another reason why I don't spend a lot of time with it, because the story changes based on who comes out of the woodwork and says, well, I know this person, or I studied with this person and this is what they're teaching. So it keeps changing a little bit. But I always liked that story of Mikhail Usui and these like bubbles of light with the symbols, because there have been teachings throughout the ages of this being sort of a way that people are kind of downloaded with knowledge and information and abilities. And these abilities to heal, for example, are part of an ancient tradition in both yoga in India and in Tibet and China, and probably many other places around the world, but those are the ones that I'm familiar with, where people are endowed with an ability. And in the yoga tradition or the tantric tradition, it would be called a siddhi. or like a superpower almost. And so that is the kind of the sense of what happened to Dr. Usui, is that he was endowed with this like superior ability to heal. So just like some people are born with a beautiful singing voice, like we can all sing, right? But some people can knock it out of the park. And that's what he was with Reiki. He was able to knock it out of the park. And so because of that, he was able to do the attunements that he developed so that he could initiate other people into the same process as him. And from him came other teachers. If you're looking at the chart, Dr. Hayashi taught, who's also from Japan, taught a woman in Hawaii called Takata. And she is the one that taught most of the Reiki masters that spread Reiki throughout the United States and Canada. And through that aspect of the lineage comes William Lee Rand, at least at the time that I studied with my teacher. So my teacher studied with William Lee Rand after he studied with, I think, Leah Smith and Marlene Schilke. But he hadn't yet studied with the people on the other side of the lineage that are Japanese from different traditions. So anyway, that's kind of the history of Reiki in a nutshell. That at least with this lineage of Reiki, that it's come down through Mikao Usui, who developed it, and then he passed on his wisdom to other people. And the way that it came to the West was that Hawayo Takata, this Hawaiian Japanese woman, traveled back to Japan, and she was very ill, and she ended up at Hayashi's Healing Center. And she had a tumor and gastritis and some other stuff, but she was in rough shape. And she went and had treatments every single day for 4 months, and she completely healed. And she convinced Hayashi to teach her what they were doing. And so she learned it from him and then brought it back home to Hawaii when she returned. And then she trained 22 people to become Reiki masters and developed her own attunement process. And one of the things that's really cool about Reiki is that there's a lack of rigidity to it. So there's this recognition that the teacher can have, the student can have more insight than the teacher. And the student can kind of take what they've learned and develop on top of that. And that's what's happened throughout the years, at least in this lineage. So there are some lineages that might be more strict and that don't allow for that kind of improvisation. But as times change and frameworks change, as people's minds change and the paradigm shifts, different techniques come to the surface and different ways of doing things. And so as that happened, and as Reiki was brought from Japan, which is a very different cultural tradition than the United States, to the United States, it also changed. And then from there, things have been added along the way. So if you haven't read the history, I encourage you to do it. It's kind of like a rite of passage to know the history, and you won't necessarily remember all the names and stuff like that. It's like reading Game of Thrones, but it's good to get a general overview of what that history is. Because if you go on to do this and you love it and you're practicing it, it's nice to have that root in all aspects of it. So, all right. So that was one of the things I wanted you to read for this week, was the history, which was chapter 2, and then also chapter 1. Did anybody read chapter 1?
That's it.
Okay, good. So we talked a lot of the same about a lot of we talked about a lot of the things in chapter 1 last time. We talked about what Ray and what Ki mean. We talked about how Ray is spiritually guided and Ki is life energy. And just to reiterate something I said this time, everybody has the ability to do this. And some people will just have more of an inclination for it than others, but it doesn't mean that everybody can't do it. Everybody has the ability to use Reiki. We talked about the attunement process last time. And so when I took Reiki, I only had one attunement for Reiki 1 and one attunement for Reiki 2, and then ART and Master, and I had some healing attunements. I had a Karuna Reiki attunement. And I've taught it both ways, where I do 1 attunement or I do 4 attunements for Reiki 1. And really what I find is that the most important thing is that everybody's practicing. It's not important to take the extra time to do the extra attunements. What's important is that we're practicing on ourselves throughout the course of the 4 weeks. And so everybody's going to get their attunement. Somebody already had theirs, and somebody will get theirs later. So that's exciting. The attunement process is one where you might want to like document your experience if you noticed anything during it. If you didn't, every attunement is different. So you might have a mind-blowing experience your first attunement, and then you'll expect that for Reiki 2, and then it won't happen, and vice versa. So you never know what's going to occur. But even the attunement process has evolved over the years. And I find that I actually change it up a little bit myself with people, because some people need more time with some aspects of it than others. And I never know what's going to happen when I go into the attunement either. That's why I make myself as receptive as possible with them, just like I do with the treatments. It talks about a cleansing process. So I talked about that this week. The cleansing process is just a naturally occurring process that's going to unfold as you practice Reiki on yourself. And Reiki can never cause harm. But I do encourage you to listen to your intuition with it. So if you're doing Reiki on yourself or Reiki on someone else, and you're getting a sense that you should move your hands somewhere else or that you should stop, then I would ask that you listen to that, because there are always, there may be things going on that you don't know about, and your intuition is the most important thing. So we have our intention when we give a Reiki treatment, whether it's for ourselves or for others, but that intention is not our will overpowering the guidance that we're receiving from the universe or from our higher selves. So listening to our intuition is one of the most important things that you can do in a Reiki session. And that's another reason for the self-cultivation practices, because it's easier for the most part to listen to yourself if you're practicing self-cultivation practices. Reiki never depletes your energy. When you do a Reiki session, it shouldn't fatigue you. If it is, you're using your own energy, you're sending your own energy. And so, so what I want to do today before we finish is practice a little bit of the scanning technique. And this will be a self-scan. It's called Biosyn scanning. And the way that I do Biosyn scanning on myself is I'll like put my, say you're all sitting up probably. So bring your dominant hand into an upright position on your lap, like in a position of receiving. That's your dominant hand. And with your non-dominant hand, uncross your feet. And with your non-dominant hand, unless you're sitting cross-legged, but if you're in a chair, put both feet on the floor. with your non-dominant hand, you're just gonna, about this many inches from you, about 6 inches from you, you can start at the top of your head and just kind of like you're scanning for any differences in the feeling of your hand as you go over the midline of your body. And there may be a place where you feel like you want your hand to stop. And if you do feel that, then stop at that place and bring both hands right onto your body in that place. Otherwise, continue with the scan. If you're bringing your hands to your body, intend that Reiki flows. So if you're touching the body, it's a very, very gentle touch. You're not pressing. It's like you're touching yourself with the weight of a nickel on your skin. So if you can imagine how a nickel would feel, that much pressure. Like if you were laying down, you put a nickel on your skin. That's how your hand, that's a rough gauge of how your hand can feel while you're sending Reiki to yourself. You can stay in this spot or you can continue to scan. And you can stay with what you're doing. If you've finished what you're doing, then scan again and notice how your hand feels in the scan at that same place you were just at. If it's changed. We'll take 5 or 6 more breaths here. If you're finished, you can just place your hands in your lap. And then gently open your eyes. So this week, I encourage you to do a Biosin scan on yourself every single day and stop at those places, send with the intention of sending Reiki, just until you feel like it's complete, and then you can move on. I use Biosin scanning when I do back points. So when I have somebody lay face down, the first thing I do is scan their back to see which points are lighting up. So your sensitivity will become greater and greater the more you do it. And you can go over different areas of the body with it, but from right now, just focus on going down the midline. And then if you feel like you need to veer off, you can check out your limbs, check out the sides. And so do that for a few minutes, just a couple minutes every day. And for next week, I would like you to please take a look at the Hayashi Healing Guide on page 65. And chapter 7 on page 75. And then page 146 and 147 has the internal organs. So you can see where everything is. So when you're scanning, you can see what's under the surface if you're not familiar with the anatomy that's already there. And then next time, we're going to start out with a full body treatment. I'm going to guide you through a full self session. So you'll want to be somewhere next week that you can lay down, because I want you to be able to relax. Did anyone not feel anything during that scan? Okay, good.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not sure what you're supposed to feel, because everybody feels something different, right? But I did feel like a weird little pain in my right shoulder, so that's why I went over to the shoulder. Is that what I'm supposed to do? I mean, I
Yep.
wasn't sure, but I felt the pang, and I do have a really messed up bone on bone shoulder.
Okay. Yeah. That'll happen. Like sometimes you'll get an ache or a pain. Sometimes it'll just feel like a little static. Sometimes it'll just feel like it's like your hand doesn't want to go anywhere else but right there. And this is something like, these are signals that we get when we're working on ourselves. And then there's signals that we get when we work on other people too. And sometimes you'll get a pain where somebody else has one. And so then you'll know where to go on them. It doesn't mean you're taking on their pain. It's just one of the many, many ways you can get signals. That's why I encourage as much practice as possible in the days between the classes, because that's how you're going to figure out the language of the energy for yourself. And you know, if you want to know something, you can ask. Like you can go to where that pain is and you can ask, what is this? Or if you get like an intuitive hit, or you get like something pop in your mind, or a color or a shape or whatever, you can sit with it and have the intention of receiving an answer and ask, what does this mean? Because as you do energy work, you are learning the language of the energy for you. So you can look stuff up online or in a book, just like with a dream dictionary. You can look up a symbol in a dream, and there'll be the general Jungian archetypal things that are there, or whatever, whoever system it is. But when it comes down to it, what matters is what that symbol means to you in your life. That's how you understand the language of your subconscious and the language of the energy that's coming through by that inquiry. And if you get an answer, you may remember it forever. But this is another reason why I recommended you have like a Reiki journal so that you write down what that language is. So if you feel static, if you feel cold coming out of your hand, if you feel cold coming out of a body, whatever it is, whether it's tactile or like an intuitive sense or a vision or a sound or a smell, start to ask, what is this? What does this mean? And you'll get answers. It's really cool, but it's good to be patient and wait for them to come. It takes a few minutes sometimes. Any other questions or comments before we wrap up today?
Oh, but I didn't get a chance to check my email again, so I don't know if you had a time to do an attunement with me.
I think I emailed you back.
Okay, I haven't had a chance to.
Okay, I don't remember what I said though. Where are you? You're in a yurt. That's so cool.
And it's really cold. It's in North Creek by Gore.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we were big skiers, so we, instead of renting one year, we put up a yurt and
That's awesome.
no,
I love
no
yurts.
running water and a pipe in the ground to go to the bathroom, but that's okay.
That's all right. Yeah, just a little cold right now.
I'll come visit sometime
That would be fun.
after COVID.
Yeah, that would be cool. Great place to do healing circles.
Okay, yeah, we can.
Yeah. All right, everyone. It was good to see you. If you have any questions, let me know. If you haven't contacted me about your attunement yet, please do so. I'd love to get them all done this week so that we're all starting on the same page next week with the healing, self-healing session.
Okay.
All right. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.